guess it's time for a video that's not about a camera. Look what I found at an antique store. $75 seemed a little steep, but the typewriter was gorgeous and I just couldn't resist. And yes, it doesn't work, but I figured trying to fix it would be a lot of fun. These typically sell on Amazon for about $75 up to, well, $500 or $600. The ones for $75 almost always include $30 of shipping. So in reality, $75 wasn't such a bad price. Now for a really good one that works, expect to spend $200 or $300. And if you do get one cheap, don't expect it to work. Almost all of them need some sort of help to get them back on the way to functioning normally. And also, don't expect it to be a workhorse. If you do a lot of typing, you want to do it on your computer with a decent keyboard. You don't want to use a mechanical analog typewriter, but they make great decorations and they are fascinating pieces of history. So how do I know it's called a rhythm touch? Well, you can look the serial number up on the internet, and after the Model S and the Model SS came the rhythm touch. Now basically from the front they looked exactly the same. Here's a picture of the serial number days later after I had done quite a bit of cleanup on the machine. So first I took it out into the driveway and tried to blow most of the dirt out with the air compressor. It wasn't nearly as dirty as I thought in terms of getting dirt in the garage, so I probably didn't have to go in the driveway. Nevertheless, I gave it a quick shot of air just to see if I could make it a little cleaner inside. So what exactly is wrong with this typewriter that we think we want to clean it up and fix it? Well, the space bar doesn't do anything. The carriage return, when I first got it, wouldn't move at all. Now it moves, although it squeaks and grunts and doesn't do a good job of it. When you hit a key, it doesn't advance to the next. Sometimes it does. It's sticky, so you can't count on it. The tab function is a little strange. If we hit the tab, well, it's not even going to do it now. Got to be at the other end, I guess. Well, the carriage is a problem. The shift key is really interesting because there's shift lock and shift, and normally you would press the shift key or the shift lock key, and then you have to press the shift key to get it out of shift lock. In this case, if you just press the shift key, it goes into a shift lock state, and you gotta kind of wiggle and jiggle to get it out of it, which is really strange. It's like the shift lock is sort of semi-permanently bound, probably just dirty. The tabs, I can't demonstrate that now because it's not tabbing at all, but the tabs were very strange. See, like right now it's freely moving, it's not locking in to any place. Maybe I have some lever switched. There. If I add the tension, I can get it. So if I hit the tab key and pull on it, it'll go to a tab stop. And I'll go back again. Oh, I can't get it to bind again. But at any rate, the tabs, I was able to set them, but I wasn't able to clear them. And that's just a case of these tabs. They go down when they're set like this this pair here, but they go up when they're unset. And I can push them up with my fingers, just barely. They're all rusted up or dirty. So that's, I think, just an easy cleanup job. So basically, I think the typewriter is pretty good condition. It just needs cleaning and lubrication, I hope. But we'll find out as we get into it. So here I am cleaning the typewriter, the keys right now, and then eventually the case and the front cover. And I'm cleaning it with Awesome. And that was a mistake. I should have just used soapy water. As you'll see, the front cover here, the Underwood sign is starting to go away. And that's because the Awesome, I guess, was a little too harsh. I sure wish I hadn't done that. And when I got all done cleaning it, after it got dried out, it really looked terrible. The outside of the case now looked like an old gray mirror with spots on it. So I thought, what have I got to lose? I put 3-in-1 oil on the outside of it, and that made it dark, black, and shiny again. I'm not sure that that'll last, but from 10 feet away it looks great, and it's probably not the right thing to do, but I got at least the color back in. Fortunately, my Underwood label on the front is still not well. So now I'm cleaning with just water and, in some cases, 3-in-1 oil. Here I'm using an electric toothbrush dipped in mineral spirits to try and clean the type keys. Well, I made some progress on it. The shift and shift lock now work properly. I unbound all of the tab stops in the back, so tabs should work. The spring on this carriage release doesn't seem to work properly all the time. I don't know if it works, but we can look in the back. These are all in the set position, which is interesting. Now all of the tabs are clear, so if I set one, that clearly set a tab there. As you can see, that tab is set. So if I hit the tab key, whoops, wrong direction. That went to the tab stop. And here's the tab clear button. It's like it's one notch off, I think. Yeah, you have to hit the space bar once to get to the real tab stop and then clear work. Well, that's interesting. So then if I had multiple tabs set, if you hold down the tab clear key and run the carriage around, from right to left, it raises them all up. Not perfectly, but it does. So basically, I think the tabs work. The problem is, and maybe it's only a tension problem, but it's like there's not enough tension on the mainspring. Get a key up here. Might just be a tension problem, but you can't get at the escapement on this thing because it's pretty much buried. So we're going to try and follow the directions for removing the carriage assembly, which happens to be here. And first it says disconnect the carriage drawband from the carriage draw stud and position it on the draw stud on the main frame. So I don't know if we can see any of that from the top. Okay, so here's where we want to position it, on that little tab. And here's the draw stud. I'm going to get a hook. And it says remove the front plate screws. Now that's easy enough to do. But this screw has a carriage end mechanism on the end of it. So when you remove that, this piece falls loose. This piece right here. You can see that. When you take that screw out, this piece will fall loose. Oops. So these two go together. So this should come out. And it's a big heavy piece of cast iron, I guess, machined into that beautiful form. Now it has different directions depending on whether you have a brake band, and I don't know whether I have a brake band or not. I don't know how to tell. The screws were loose. It took me forever to figure out that the screw on the left end of this brake band was stopping it from releasing and lifting out like the instructions said. So I took the screw out, and once I got the brake band off of this post that was held by a screw, then I was able to slide the carriage out of the end. Ta-da! And by the way, as you see me struggling here, this thing weighs 35 pounds. Now that I have a better view of the inside and especially the escapement mechanism, I figured I would try and clean it up a little bit. First, try to brush a little out with a little dust off of it, and then with a little oil and a rag, and try and rub around and lubricate whatever I could. This thing I'm holding that's getting in the way is the brake band, and it keeps getting in the way, so I'm going to take the screw or something and fasten it down so it doesn't keep getting in the way. Eventually, maybe I didn't do it right here. But now I thought I would try and clean up the carriage assembly as best I can. Again, with maybe a little dusting and a little oil. Here I'm finally fastening down the brake band, something I should have did earlier. I'm glad I didn't accidentally bend it or bust it. Here's a picture of the brake band at the top and the brake shoes at the bottom. The brake band is on the carriage, the brake shoes are on the machine. When I press the tab key, the brake shoes close like this, and that makes it not slam down the carriage to the tab. It goes down there gently. Here I'm taking these rods loose in the front so I can move them just a little bit, because I was having trouble loosening a screw that's holding the ribbons assembly in place. Normally you wouldn't have to do this, but that screw's been rusted in the spot for, well, maybe since 1948, who knows. The machine was made in 48, and I couldn't budge it, so I had to move these so I could get a screwdriver down so that I could get at the ribbon. I'll speed this up a little. The reason I was doing this was to remove these shields so that I could have better visibility into the transport mechanism for the ribbon, because I wasn't convinced it was going to reverse automatically. I fiddled with the levers at the top. I thought with the carriage off, I should have been able to force an auto reverse, and I was never able to. So I thought maybe if I had better visibility into the mechanism itself that does the auto reversing of the ribbons, I could find something wrong. In reality, I never did find anything wrong, so I ended up putting these shields back on and hoping that maybe when the carriage is in place, I wouldn't really have a problem with the lever. Maybe the carriage needed to be there to force the lever reversing mechanism. This sequence is me investigating the ribbon reversing mechanism, and it's sped up 40 times the speed. At this point, I've given up on the auto reversing of the ribbon mechanism. I'm convinced maybe the carriage has to be on, so now I'm just going to do some more general cleanup and try to reassemble the machine. Actually, after I got it all back together, the ribbon reversing worked perfectly well, but I did order a new ribbon, and I ordered a Underwood ribbon, which is supposed to have grommets, but the new ribbons just never have grommets, so you would have to install them yourself. But I just left it the way it is. You can push the little button in on the side to reverse for left and right manually. At this point, I'm ready to put the carriage back on the machine, the upper carriage. And this should be a simple process, but it took me forever to finally wiggle it on and get it right. Part of my problem was I was convinced this big tab on the front had to go underneath the bar, which is physically impossible. It has to go on top of it. The two bearings that I thought were going to ride on that bar, in fact, ride in the little strip in the front that has the margin labels on it. So I spent forever trying to get it on the wrong way. Here I finally got the carriage on right. The brake band does not have to be loosened or removed. You just have to fiddle with it a little bit to get it in and out. Now I'm almost done. The last step in the assembly of the carriage is to refasten the mainspring strap, and you should just carefully grab it with a hook and set it on the correct position. And I slipped and it swung loose and broke. This next sound is the mainspring letting go. At this stage, I am not a happy camper, but there's only one thing I can do, try and repair it. I used some nylon strapping and replaced the broken material. It took me 2 tries. First I tried using heat to melt the 2 pieces together. On the second try I used super glue. I removed the tabulator assembly, and the only reason I did that was to get at this screw, which was stopping the carriage from dropping. It was really strange. After I put it back together, the carriage wouldn't go up and down like it should until I got this screw loosened, and it was rusted in tight. Now it's time for the first typing test. Okay, it obviously needs a ribbon, and I need to clean the type keys with a pick a little better. While I was typing, I noticed that the right-hand margin did not stop the carriage at all, and it turns out there was a broken spring. Here are the two pieces of the broken spring. So I found an old spring clip from a pin that clips to your shirt, and I modified it and drilled a hole in it and reshaped it to make it fit for a spring for stopping the right margin. Here's my attempt to fix the Underwood lettering that got worn off while I tried to clean the front plate. Actually, the aluminum paint that I had matched perfectly with what came from the factory, and everything seemed to go pretty well on the word Underwood. When I tried to do the 3 dots on the right, the top one's supposed to be black, the middle one white, and the bottom one red. I didn't do well on the black. It just smeared, so I wiped that off and then tried to paint it back in. The white turned out okay, and the red needs a second coat, and I'll probably do that. I think what I'll do with the black is I'll paint it black again, and I'll outline it in silver. And then I tried to number the settings here on the left that went from 1 to 6, and I'll have to touch them up with some black later to make them a little more clearer. First I thought I'd just put a dot of black paint with a toothbrush, and it just spread out. It was too thin. If it had stayed thick and dried that way, it would have been perfect, but it didn't. So then I switched to white paint and painted in the center dot. And lastly, switched to red paint and painted in the little red dot for the red ink setting. I'll need a second coat here. This sets the pressure sensitivity. Takes the least pressure to use on the keyboard. This takes the most. And I've tested it. The difference between 0 and 6 is not very much, but I prefer the lighter touch, although I don't type on it except for this test. This is how you set the margins. This is the line spacer switch. It's set to single lines right now. So every time you do a carriage return, you go down one line. Now we'll set it to double spacing. And here's triple spacing. And we'll set it back to single again. And if you wanted to type a superscript or a subscript, this little lever releases the roller so that you can position it anywhere you want. You go by the top line here, and so if we wanted to put the subscript right about there, we hit a 2. Now, this is in sync with this, so that if you want to get back to exactly the same position on the original lines, you just release that lever. And now if you select that, we're back exactly in line with the one we were on. Now, if you wanted to change the spacing so that you were askew from that, there's a clutch on the left. You pull that out. You can turn this to wherever you want and put it back in again. And now you're on a different line spacing than before. So you can see that they don't line up. So you've reselected that. So that's the new gaps between every line by releasing and re-energizing that clutch. And this raises the bail bar a little bit, but you can also just by hand raise the bail bar all you want. This is the margin or the carriage release button on the right, and there's a thumb hold. And this is the carriage release button on the left. And that's about all you really need to know to run this thing. There's the backspace. And here's the tab function. We'll set a tab, and we'll tab over. Second tab, and then you tab to the end. Now if we hit the first tab, then we can clear it. Now if we hit a tab, it only goes to the second tab. And again, we can clear that. And these little flip-up things are in case you're putting some cardstock in and you want to keep it curling so that it doesn't come straight up, and so you can see what you're typing at for thicker cards and stuff. I usually kind of just leave them up because I think they add a little presence to what you're typing, but they do get in the way of seeing your line of type. So you can press this little lever here and click them down. To make exclamation points, you have to hit the apostrophe, which is shifted, backspace, and hit a period. I ordered Underwood new ribbon, and it came on plastic reels, which is no surprise. All new ribbons come on plastic reels nowadays, but they weren't authentic. Here were the original metal wheels, which were anodized or painted black. Unfortunately, they had a little rust on them. In fact, one had quite a bit of rust on the back side. Now, a normal person would have just said, well, okay, you could just put the bad side down and it won't look so bad. Or you could probably just spray some black paint over it. But I thought I'd probably want to try and take care of the rust problem first. All right, here's the setup for doing electrolysis for removing rust. Now, it's simple enough. You take a cheap 12-volt battery charger, and I emphasize the word cheap. You don't want one that'll shut off because it thinks the battery's charged or is run too long or something simple. This one has no extra controls in it. It just puts out power to charge a 12-volt battery, and when the voltages get close to equal, it just ends up trickle charging. There's nothing fancy about it. It just puts out voltage and current as the demand supplies. The voltage is set. So this is easier to use. So you need a 12-volt battery, a 12-volt supply. Well, you need a voltage supply with current. And you need water and some pH plus, which you can get from every swimming pool supply place, usually including Walmart and some fast places. At any rate, you add water, you add the pH plus, you put the 2 electrodes in and let things cook. I'll go get some water. There's the water we're going to use. Now you take some of this pH plus and sprinkle a little in. That's probably plenty. It will break up and dissolve eventually, doesn't matter. Now the key is making sure you know the difference between positive and negative. Because if you do it backwards, you'll actually create rust rather than eliminate rust. So the positive terminal is the anode, and they call it a sacrificial anode. And what you want to do is hook something iron or steel to it, preferably not stainless steel. And you want to put that in the water. And now we want to be careful here that my clamp doesn't get in the water because it would corrode. This is a sacrificial anode. It will turn into a rusty mess. So will anything else in the water hooked to the positive lead. So I'll try to put a little clamp on that. Trying to make sure that that lead doesn't actually get in the water. I'll put it over on this side so you can see better. Now the negative electrode you want to hook to the part you want to derust. In this case, I'll hook 2 little alligator clips on here, hopefully to conduct electricity to these devices. This has a little rust on that side, little spots on the other side. And we'll put that in the soup. And hopefully that's a good contact. And this one has quite a bit of rust on this side. And we'll put that in the soup. Like so. Now all that's left is the magic. All we have to do is plug this in and current should start flowing from the cathode to the anode. It's buzzing and it's not drawing any significant current yet, but it is buzzing. So the idea is that the cathode, the negative lead, attracts positive ions. Water molecules near the cathode split into hydrogen gas and hydrogen ions. So you could argue that it's dangerous because you're producing hydrogen gas, which would be explosive, but the amount of gas that comes out of these containers, even if you have a lot of steel in there, is just about insignificant. The rust, the Fe2O3, is reduced, gains electrons, converting some of it back into solid iron, Fe, and some back into stable iron oxide or magnetite, Fe3O4. The anode corrodes. The positive lead attracts negative ions and oxidizes. The sacrificial anode, like steel, corrodes away, helping the process. If you use stainless steel as an anode, it releases harmful chromite ions, which are toxic. So what does it replace the rust with? Some of the rust converts to solid iron, some of the rust converts to black magnetite, which is more stable and protective. Any remaining loose rust flakes off. And finally, after electrolysis, the treated metal should be cleaned, dried, and coated. So I'm going to let this video run, speed it up, and you should see the oxidation occur. You should see this liquid becoming rustier and rustier and rustier. And after a few hours, those parts should be derusted. As it speeds up the process here, you'll see little bubbles coming off. Oxygen bubbles on the left and hydrogen bubbles on the right. And you'll see some green rust appearing on the sacrificial anode right now. The green byproducts flowing off. So I'm hoping to see more bubbles, but this takes a little time. Sometimes I leave these run overnight. Sometimes I just let them run for 2 or 3 hours. The rest of this video is about 3 hours and 15 minutes long, so I'll accelerate it here so you can see the electrolysis in action. The speed up here is 200 times as fast as normal rate. This is as fast as Final Cut Pro would let me speed it up, so you got about 40 more seconds. Most of the movement here is my iron nail just dying and becoming a rusty mess, being sacrificed. It's not just coming off the typewriter ribbon spool. Here I'm installing the new ribbon from the plastic reels onto the original steel ribbon reels. And in the process, the ribbon I ordered didn't come with grommets, even though it said it was for this particular typewriter. And you need the grommets so that the auto reversing works when the ribbon comes to an end, it'll switch from moving from left to right to left. Here are some pictures of the completed typewriter. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.